It started when I was in kindergarten, and my kindergarten teacher would call my mom on a frequent basis to say, please come get Mesha and remove her from my classroom. The problem was I was telling all the kids what to do, and they wouldn't listen to her, they would only listen to me. And the kindergarten teacher and I never really got along because I was what was considered a tomboy, and she always wanted me to play with the girls and play with dolls and the houses, and I wanted to jump and climb trees and play cops and robbers. And she would tell me little girls didn't do that. So my mom comes to the school and picks me up and tells me I'm not going to be able to come back if I don't stop, and that I have to listen to the teacher and let the kids listen to the teacher. So we're driving home, and she turns to me and says, little girl, who are you? And who do you think you are that you can tell the kids what to do and not the teacher, and you need to listen? So this actually goes on for quite a while for me throughout school. So in 5th grade, halfway through, my mom takes me out of my school and says, you're going to a new school. So I'm kind of nervous, excited. We get up that morning, we're driving, and we're driving, and we're driving. And all of a sudden, I start to notice that the houses and the buildings start to change. And I see cornfields, I see barns, and I see cows. And all of a sudden this odor comes through the car, and I'm like, what is that smell? Where are you taking me? And we get to the school, and the teacher welcomes me, and I'll never forget. Scott stands up, and he runs to the back of the room, and he goes and grabs, I don't know if you all remember the desk that's attached to the chair. So he picks that up above his head and brings it to the front and sits it in the middle of the room right next to him and say, here, sit next to me. And immediately I felt connected and nervous because I looked around the room and it was no one that looked like me in the room. And I found out that there was no one in the school that looked like me for K-5 to 8th grade, and it was a German descent school. So I would sing in German, I would do square dancing, something an African-American kid has never done before. And all I remember is Stille Nacht from German. That's the only thing I remember. And that's Silent Night for those who don't know. So my mom's happy. She's like, oh, this is going to work. That didn't last too long. About a year into the school, I played in every sport I could play, basketball, volleyball, track, you name it. And I decide I'm going to start football. So I go around to all the other schools and I get all these girls to sign petitions to start football. Mind you, I'm in 5th grade in the 70s. And all of a sudden, the teachers get wind of it. They come to me like, stop, you can't do that. Cut it out. I don't listen. I keep doing it anyways. So one day, I get called into the principal's office, and my mom is there. And they tell her the story, and I say, well, I want to play football. And the teacher says, little girl, girls don't play football. That's for boys. And right away, I said, well, why do we play it in gym class with the boys? And she was so angry. My mom's eyes popped out because she doesn't like confrontation. She's an introvert. She's just really nervous. And so we get in the car, and she turns to me, and she says, who do you think you are? You cannot do this. We've talked about this over and over. And the first time she asked me that when I was in kindergarten, I never responded. But this time I said, I think I'm right and she's wrong. And she didn't give me a good enough answer. So this again continues on, and I go to high school. And I almost got expelled 4 times, but it was for things that I thought were right and that I was fighting for. So my mom decides to put me in a pilot program called Chapter 220. And Milwaukee is where I'm from, was a very segregated school. And so they decided to take minority students from the city and bus them to suburban schools. So there was about 10 to 15 of us that went to my particular high school. So I'm going, I'm all excited, and I'm walking back and forth because we all have a study hall that we have to do each day. And I'm starting to notice there's only 2 to 3 people in the study hall, and they look like me. So I marched to the office and I talked to the counselor and I said, why are we in this study hall? I don't see anybody else in it. And she says, well, you guys are just so bad in your studies and you're just behind, and we need to get you caught up, and your grades are so bad. And I said, well, I don't know whose transcripts you've looked at, but I have straight A's and I want to be out of that room right now. And she said, well, you can't come out. You have to, all the classes are full. You can't, you have to wait till the new semester. I said, I'm not going back to that class. So I don't remember where I went that period, but I left the office. About an hour later, I get called to the office. Who do you think's sitting there? My mom. And they tell her the story. I tell her my side. And I said, you don't know what they do to us when we're here. When you walk out, it's a totally different story. They don't really care about our education or us. What I didn't tell you is that for every student that came to the high school, they got thousands of dollars per student. So that was more important to them from my perspective. So we get in the car, and my mom turns to me and says, who do you think you are? Why do you keep doing this? I can't keep leaving work to come deal with these situations. You have to listen to the teachers. So then there's one more thing that this school did. Every month, they took all of us Chapter 220 students out for a day of class, and we had catered breakfast, catered lunch, a DJ, we got to dance and party, we had prizes and games. Guess what the intent was? It was to discuss the racial issues in our school. So I'm thinking, okay, I sit here and I'm watching this. This is going on for months, for a year. And finally, I get the opportunity to get the mic, and I say to the group, because we had to report back when we had our little subgroups, and I said, this is stupid. There's no racial tension in our school. How many of you have seen a white person fighting a black person? Silence. I said, the teachers are causing racial tension because they're bringing us here every month. You all go back and brag while our white classmates are in class all day. That's not fair. And then we get our homework at the end of the day. So they're causing racial tension. And I could see all of my classmates getting mad and angry. And I said, you can get as mad as you want, but you need to wake up. So I get back to school, and we get there at the end of the day. I'm about to get on my transportation home, and they said, no, we need you to go to the principal's office, because they had already called ahead. Guess who's sitting in the principal's office? My mother. And she said, they're about to expel you again. I can't have you keep doing this. And she says, who are you? Like one more time. But then it changes, and she says, whose daughter are you? And I heard that over and over throughout the rest of my school year and my working career. So I go from Wisconsin to Minnesota to Arizona, total difference. All my friends and family are angry at me because they said, how can you go to a state that doesn't accept African Americans? There's no opportunities. And they were one of the fewest states that recognized Martin Luther King Day. I said, as far as I last heard, the United States is a free country. I love hiking, I love biking, I love the mountains, and I'm not gonna let anybody tell me where I can live and can't live, and it takes people like me to make change.